start recording. So we are now going to be able to share this with you after we, in the next couple of days or so. We'll be uploading it to YouTube, so you'll get a full visual and audio access to this presentation. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, we got Maddie Sturton here as well. She is our RWS Premium Programs and Services Assistant here at the CBAA, and she is kind of hanging around in the chat box, and she's going to be answering any specific questions that you might have as the presentation progresses. So feel free to message her either privately or as a as a public post, which you can do down there in the chat box, and she might be able to help you out. All right, so what we're going to do with this particular presentation tonight, with this webinar, is to take a bit of time to discuss your online content. Most specifically, I'm going to go through the very basics of what your Amrap page actually looks like, the different factors that come into it. And then the second half of the presentation is going to be a very, very basic step-by-step of how to actually use the features on your Amrap page. So as I mentioned, this is going to be available afterwards as well, so you can refer back to it at any time. Cool. So with that in mind, I am now going to go to this page. Cool. All right. Okay, so as I mentioned, I want to take a little bit of time to go through, I guess, the main features of your Amrap pages in general. Particularly if you're a first-time user, I feel like it's incredibly important just to know the different areas on your page. So basically what we say is that your Amrap page is your online home for your radio program. It really is where the story of a radio program comes together. So you can kind of think of it as I guess a bit of a reflection and also a bit of an extension as well to your on-air radio content. So it's not just something extra that you just do. It can really become part of your everyday programming. Just looking on this slide particularly here, so we've got program images, which is essentially 2 of them, or possibly 3. The main one being the banner image just at the top here, and a profile picture that is just underneath it. The banner, as you can see in this example, you might use for a logo if you have a logo for your show. That's a good area to pop that. And the profile picture is essentially the same as like a Facebook or other social media profile. So you can use a selfie or maybe an in-studio photo, something that's a little bit more personal, puts a face to the name, and really kind of gives them an idea of what you're about. Moving a little bit further down, we've got social media links just here. So that is Facebook and Twitter. And we've got a program description. So your program description is essentially what you can use to explain the purpose of your program, the aims of what you guess I kind of have when you are creating a program at your station. So you can think of your program description in a way, it could be like your mission statement. So it really could be like a synopsis, of what your program is about. So in the case of this one here, this one is a music program, and so in it you can see at the top there we've popped like the genres, so jazz, world, blues, soul, folk, and all those other ones there. And if you do a talk show as well, it's equally important because you can list like maybe the different topics that you discuss, the segments that you possibly do on a week-to-week basis. If you have regular guests in as well, it's a good time to kind of talk about them and what they kind of bring to your show as well. It's all really good stuff, and it's really useful to bring in people to your program week to week and really give them, I guess, a real sense of what your program is about. Another really good thing as well is that you can kind of see here, you can hyperlink in this particular section as well. So you can link off to other things that you may have, whether it's like a YouTube account or an Instagram account as well. You can link them to that. And also even like a website or something like that. Anything that's related to your program, it would be a really good idea to link into the program description right there. So I guess in a way, the program description is like the prologue to your story. But the main, I guess, attraction is this one right here, the episode, which is essentially a different and unique installment to each part of your show. And it really kind of creates a desire to return for the next installment of your program as well. So keep this in mind when you are kind of going through, when you do use your Amrap page for each individual episode. It's a good idea to kind of think about these things in kind of separate chapters, because it's an opportunity to really showcase what you've done on air in a really unique edition of your program. The episode title, image and description are here at the very, very top. And you can see, so with the episode title, for instance, you might want to basically state the most exciting thing that's happened on that particular episode of your show. For example, maybe the names of the people that you interviewed, or maybe if you did like a live performance, it's a good idea to pop that in there too. Or if it's like a music special or a themed show, a really good idea to pop them in there as well. For your episode image, it's a really cool idea to put like a unique image in there. So maybe if you had a guest in the studio, take a photo with them and pop that in there as well. Or again, something that's related to maybe the theme or the concept that you've done for that particular episode. With the description, again, similar to the program description, but it's a really good way to highlight the specific highlights of that particular episode, so that they can kind of glean off that particular description and then think, oh, I might actually be into this. This has got some content in there that really kind of speaks to me and relates to things that I'm interested in. You can also use the episode description to check out the playlist, which you can see here just underneath. And this is where you're going to be, this is kind of like the main feature, of your Amrap page. So it's where you pop all of the songs that you popped in, but not only songs as well, segments. You can actually pop your segments into that particular playlist and pop more information in there. Maybe if you've uploaded like an interview that you've done onto a separate platform, like on a SoundCloud or a Mixcloud, you're able to actually embed that into these particular tracks. And I'm going to go through that in a lot more detail a little later on in the presentation, so no need to worry just yet. But yeah, it's essentially a good way to showcase what you've been playing on your show, and also what you've been popping in terms of segments on your show. And when you add a song or a segment to the playlist, it actually opens up a content window, which is this thing just down the bottom here. And it comes and pulls up an image, a video, and also text as well. So it will search for these based on what you've popped into that particular field. And so you will actually be able to go through and change all of this if it's not correct, or you can add it in your own kind of images and videos, and also text if you want to as well. So for instance, maybe if you did like a segment, it was an interview with a particular person, you can pop in an image of them, pop in a little description about what you spoke about maybe, and also links to their social media, their websites, where your listeners and fans can go and check out more about these particular people and what you spoke about. Okay, so that's just a very brief breakdown of what your Amrap page is and the components that make it up. And so a really good thing to note as a bit of a side note is that filling in your playlist with songs particularly helps musicians find out that you are playing them, because they can use a function that we have called the Airplay Search, which is located on our website. Basically, if you search for any artist listed in your Amrap page, you'll see that they'll pop up in this particular search here. And this search is used extensively by artists and also their representatives to assess airplay. So it could be people at labels, PR, anything like that. They all use this to see where their artists have been played. So filling out your Amrap page can be a really great way to build relationships with these musicians and also these music representatives that you play and that you like. You can see here that the Airplay Search has a link to each radio program's Facebook and Twitter, so musicians and artist reps can get in touch with you via social media. Sometimes they might get in touch with you to maybe thank you for playing that particular song or by that particular artist that they're looking after, and may also then add you to their mailing lists as well with future music submissions and interview requests. So that's it's a really useful tool and a good way to kind of build a network there. I also wanted to point out really quickly as well that on your Amrap page particularly, there is actually a search playlists function where people can actually go and they can actually search on your particular page to see whether you have played a particular artist or not. You can see it just here underneath the program description. So that's also another function that your page has, and a good way for people to really find out exactly what you've been playing. Cool. All right. When filling out your Amrap page as well, you also have the option to mark tracks as Australian and also as local. And that really helps artists to get the royalties and recognition they deserve, particularly if your station reports to APRA. And if everybody at your station uses Amrap pages, the station management can actually print off a report with all of the tracks played on your station throughout the reporting week when you need to, I guess, submit those reports. And they don't have to go through that process of actually filling out, the templates that APRA provides and kind of, scouting through all of this different stuff. You can then send that report straight to APRA, and then they can actually, go through and do what they need to do in order to get these royalties to the musicians. Particularly if you mark tracks as Australian, it really helps them deliver royalties to Australian artists, which is something that we're really passionate about here at Amrap. So yeah, that's a really good feature. It's also a really cool way for you to use your Airplay statistics to make sure that you're hitting your Australian music quota if you have one. So whether that's the 25% that is kind of across the board, or whether that maybe you've set yourself a bit higher of a goal, maybe 50%, you can click Show Statistics or Hide Statistics. It'll come up with a pane just underneath your playlist to show you what percentage and how many of the tracks that you've logged are Australian. So you can kind of keep a tab on that and really kind of hone in on your content and make it the best that it can be. So from that very, very brief overview, you can see there that there's a lot of benefits to you and to artists as well for using Amrap pages for your program. But fundamentally, Amrap Pages is meant to be a platform that is all about housing all of your on-air content in one place, which is your program page. So with that in mind, I really think it's incredibly important to consider how your program's content can do the following. Engage and attract audiences, make social, cultural, and community impact, attract like-minded creators, volunteers to your station, and also satisfy stakeholders and sustain your station. So this could be things like, do you support the local musicians by having them regularly on for live performances or even interviews? Or maybe even if you're a talks program, are you engaging with local groups and organizations that are really involved in your community? And are you discussing things that are, going on in that area that affect local residences and maybe even business owners, people that basically make up your community? These are points that are, I guess, super crucial to consider because they can really put how you approach the online presence of your show into perspective. And that also may help you decide what content would be best to push out online to have the most impact as well. So don't forget that being a community radio station within your community is what sets you apart from other media outlets as well. So there's a lot of things online. There's no doubt about that. The internet is a bit of a wealth of so many different information and news outlets. But the thing that's going to draw people into you being a part of a community radio station is that more often than not, you're hyper local. The content that you create for air is more often than not going to be personal and things that many of your listeners within your community are going to be interested in and can relate to. You may also have funding as a community organisation, depending on your situation, and a physical presence within your local area, which sometimes it could be said is why online radio stations particularly, and maybe even podcasts are, haven't really taken off as much as many people kind of thought they would. So these are all things that are really good to consider. And if you think about this critically, I guess it could be a really good time to reevaluate the current practices within your station, particularly when it comes to the preparation that goes into making your show. As a program maker, the things that you are generally focused on would be the following, which shouldn't come as any surprise to you guys. Talk breaks, segments, so whether that's interviews, reviews, gig guides, news reports, anything like that. And also, of course, song selection. But with the development of technology, particularly at the moment, and a lot of things that we're working on here at Amrap at the CBAA, there is a possibility now to extend the life of your content, to make it so that it is, it's not just going to air and then I guess disappearing. It's not just for those who happen to be tuning in at that specific moment in time, but rather something that can be listened to over and over again, and then of course shared out to your listeners and your peers as well, as relevant organizations that might be interested in promoting out your content through their own channels. So after considering this, you might feel like you want to take a bit of a different approach when it comes to planning your show and presenting your songs and segments, particularly online. Yeah. What is going on? Oh, there we go. Cool. So on a broader scale as well, this is the approach, that a lot of stations take when it comes to marketing themselves on air. It was largely aimed to encourage people to tune into your station when content is relevant to them and it is on air at that moment. But of course, as soon as it goes to air, it disappears. So it goes without saying that I guess this method of promotion has proven to be really effective over time, but now things are shifting slightly to a more online setting, and other platforms, whether it be websites or social media, are mostly used to promote what's coming up now and what's been discussed or what's been missed. And this is because your content now, I guess, has a longer life than what it used to. So one of the things that kind of is enabling this longer life of content is really a lot of people are kind of moving towards this kind of radio on demand style, which is something that some stations may have already. And it really can be like a bit of a game changer for on-air content. If you think about it, like streaming particularly, streaming is very much about right there, then and there, whenever I want to listen to it. And at this point, radio on demand is kind of coming in the same kind of, I guess, format. It basically means that the fantastic segments and songs that you put to air is no longer just broadcast in one point particular, but rather made available to be heard and revisited again and again. This is something that we're working on here at the CBAA, at Amrap particularly, and something that we feel like is basically going to be the future. It's an awesome function because, particularly I'm going to use this example, which is on the 3MDR website, which is a really fantastic station down in Emerald in Victoria. And I had the pleasure of visiting them last month as well. They've had on demand for a while now. And basically you can visit any page on their website, which is 3mdr.com, and you can listen back to individual episodes of any given show. So as a program maker, this feature really allows you to kind of use your playlist to highlight particular segments or songs that you think were really great or even important to particular groups within your community, so that you may, start a conversation. The way that they can kind of highlight these features is by putting in the time that these segments particularly have aired on their playlists, and then it kind of, once shared out onto social media, the visitors of this particular on this particular page, can then scrub forward to that particular moment in time and listen back to that segment and actually see what was said. So as I mentioned just then briefly as well, sharing it out to social media is super, super important because you can reach your online audience, the people that may not be listening at that particular time, and also to alert particular groups and people to this content so that they may want to, they may also want to go and check it out as well. All right. However, it has to be said at this point that, your station may not have radio on demand just yet. So in the interim, I guess another great alternative is to upload your specific segments, such as interviews, or possibly in this particular case on the right, soundtracks, to a third-party platform, such as SoundCloud or Mixcloud. So you can basically very simply embed your SoundCloud or Mixcloud files into your Amrap page. And that's a great way to store your on-air content. Your audio files will be visible for your online audience and will automatically refresh, particularly if you've got a playlist on SoundCloud. So you don't have to do much about it except for upload the segment to SoundCloud, and thus it will appear on your Amrap page. So as you can see in these two examples here on the right, we've got a program on FBI radio in Sydney called Ears Have Ears. They actually have tailor-made playlists made for them every week by experimental artists, music artists from around the world. So they actually upload them to SoundCloud and have this particular playlist widget embedded in their page so that they can upload these playlists for people to hear again and again. On the right is a good example of using Mixcloud, which is used by a fantastic show which is made in Triple H, which is a station in northern Sydney. It's called Aussie Music Weekly, and they actually do interviews with Australian artists almost every week. And they upload them to Mixcloud and then embed them into the episode description of their Amrap page, so that it's there for people to listen to and revisit again and again. So this is a good way to make your content available to people outside of the on-air broadcast. Another feature that could be super useful as well for you, and will actually, I must say, work a lot better if your whole station is using Amrap pages, not just one or two, is a new feature that we are developing called feature content. It's a relatively new feature. We've quietly rolled it out to your Amrap pages, and we're looking to launch it properly in the coming months with a host of other exciting projects that we've been working on. So stay tuned for that one. But this feature actually works right now. So by ticking this option that you can see just here, you're actually able to notify the people who produce the content for your website. So maybe like by the people that post the web posts on your website. They can actually run a report and can see what you've ticked as featured content, and then choose to maybe push it a bit further. So they might make a web post out of it and post it on your homepage of your website. They might also want to post it out to social media as well. So that's a really great way to kind of build a bit of a workflow within your station and to notify the people who are creating that digital content. On an individual level, you can actually also set up a Facebook or Twitter account for your program if you haven't already done so, because it's a great way to share out your content to your fans and your followers. And you can sign up for any of these social media platforms and set up public accounts or pages for your program. But another thing to add as well is that you can use, if you're a private Facebook user, which I'm assuming most of us are here, you can actually use it to share out things on your private page as well. So you can share it with your friends and your family. So don't just think that it's, I guess, to push out to, the wide world. It's also to share within your own circle and your own kind of community. And doing this as well, it is really important if you have got a public page, because it really allows you to reach new audiences in the spaces that they occupy. People are most often, discovering things on social media, constantly kind of scrolling through, their timelines and seeing what's popping up. And this, by you putting your content out there, you're just kind of creating a more likely scenario that it will be found. You can share out episodes and individual tracks to Facebook and Twitter using the social media icons that we have in the content boxes in the playlist. And if people like and retweet your photos, that will show up in other people's feeds. So it's just kind of this roll-on effect where people that you probably didn't even know really, and you didn't think they'd ever really be in touch with your show, might find out about it and become your fans. And if you have a guest on the program, a really cool thing you can do is to tag them. Super important. By simply typing the @ symbol, which you can see in the Twitter box just down the bottom here, @3MDR. That you can do that on Facebook as well, and you can actually tag people into that particular post. They'll get notified, and then they might actually spread it further and share it out themselves on their own channels, and thus their fans might become your fans. You can actually Twitter out directly as well from the Amrap page, which I'm going to show you a little later on. So we're trying to make things as easy as possible for you guys to share out your content via social media. Another little side note before we get onto the practical demonstration as well is that your Amrap page can actually be integrated into a program's public Facebook page, as you can see here. So this is Street Beat, which is another show from Triple H FM in North Sydney. And basically, these guys have integrated their page into their Amrap page, as you can see. So everything that they do on their Amrap page shows up in Facebook in this playlist tab, which is just on the left. So you can actually, everybody can do this. It's not just, if you don't say so yourself, Neil. So yeah, it's something that everybody can do. And you can actually use it to your advantage, really, to give another element to your Facebook page that, many public Facebook pages probably don't have. You can find out how to do this actually in our Amrap Pages e-guide, which I'll be pointing you towards in just a moment. But now's the time that I'm going to flag that it's going to be a bit of a live demo of how to use your Amrap page, and I'm going to go through a very basic step-by-step process on how to do that. Feel free to get in touch though if you have any questions or if you have any issues with anything that I've spoken about tonight. pages@amrap.org.au is my Amrap Pages email address, and I'm happy to hear and answer any questions that you have. You can also call us as well here for some support if you need it when using your Amrap page. We're here 5 days a week, 9 to 5. All right, so right now we're going to switch over the screens. Cool. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So most of you will, I'm assuming, will already have access to an Amrap page. But just in case you don't, if this is the first time that you're basically seeing one, this is a very basic idea of what it will look like. If it's in a website, it probably will look a little bit different, but the main features will be exactly the same. So when you first get access to your Amrap page, you will need to log in. And to do that, very simply, you need to find the capital L just underneath the banner image here. By clicking on that, that'll bring up a email and password box, which you can type in your login details, which I'm going to do right now. All right, and it must also be noted as well that if you have forgotten your password at any point or you're not quite sure what your login details are, you can also click this button here which says New User Forgot Password, and that will help you out to reset your password. Another thing too is we've got a little help button here, which, as I mentioned, I have mentioned previously, the Amrap e-guides, and to access those you can click Help, and it should pop up with a pop-up window like this, and this is basically our step-by-step guide here, as well as some other little interesting tidbits, including how to connect your Facebook page to your Amrap page and how to promote in social media, etc. So that is always there and handy for you if you need to use it. All right, so we're going to log in. And you'll know you're logged in because you'll see all of these little kind of indicators here, the blue pencils. These basically mean that you are now in edit mode. Only you can see this mode when you're logged in. And basically you can make any changes that you want to make to this particular page, which means that you can actually now edit your program name and broadcaster name if you do want to do that. I would advise maybe if you have a page, in a website, particularly if your station has RWS Premium and you're using one of our websites, you might have someone that is actually responsible for administering access to Amrap pages. I probably wouldn't change that unless they kind of tell you it's cool to do so, but feel free to change them if you are not one of those people. So as I mentioned, all of these blue pencils are basically things that you can edit. You can also pop in your Twitter handle, Facebook ID as well if you do have one. So for instance, I've set up a bit of a dummy page just here on Facebook that you should be able to see now. And if I grab this URL and go back, oh, wrong tab, go back to my Amrap page and click on this blue pencil, I can copy and I can paste in that URL. Click the blue tick button to save what I've just done, and that will then basically bring up a Facebook icon that will allow people to go straight to my Facebook page. You can do the same for Twitter as well if you do have a Twitter handle that you want to pop in there as well. You can also edit your program description as well, which, as I mentioned a bit earlier, is a great place to put your general information about your program, what you do each week, possibly even if you want people to send you music or if you want people to contact you, like in this case here, you can pop that information in there as well. Again, it's just a matter of clicking on the blue pencil and it will then bring up this particular text box, which you can then type whatever you like into there about your program. And you can also create hyperlinks as well. So if you have, for instance, here, you've got YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram handle, you can highlight the text that you want to hyperlink. you can then go to the hyperlink button, which is just here. Sorry, it looks a bit different on this page. And then you can type, copy and paste in the URL of that particular profile. So for instance, if it was Facebook, just if I wanted to do that, then I can pop in this URL and it will hyperlink there by clicking OK. Okay, all right. And remember as well, whenever you make any changes, you need to click this blue tick so that it saves them for you. All right. Cool. Now we're moving to program images. So we've got two main images, as I mentioned a bit earlier. You've got the banner image and you've got a profile image here. So you can have the banner image as maybe a logo or something that's, I guess, relevant in this case to your program. By clicking on the pencil, it will bring up this particular upload box. You can click on the box there and actually upload an image of your choice. So for instance, I'm going to go with this particular logo, which is of the show that, or the make-believe show that we're currently running with on this particular page. So if I click open, that's going to upload that pretty quickly for me, and now the banner image has changed. Same here with the profile picture. You can do exactly the same. Click the pencil, click in the box. A beautiful photo of our very own Maddie Sturton and Amrap assistant Kate is what I'm going to choose. And then it's going to upload and appear right there. Cool. All right. You can also, it must also be noted, you can do this from a mobile phone or a tablet as well. If you choose maybe an iPad or another brand of tablet, if you use those more regularly, you can also do all of these changes from those particular devices as well, if you want to. All right. Once your page is set up, now it's a great time to create individual episodes. And the way to do this is to simply click down here where it says create an episode. So if you click on that, it brings up this window here where you can select the date and the time and the duration of your show as well. Oh, and I might actually just reiterate what Maddie just said in the chat box there, just in case anyone didn't catch it. So the best dimensions for the banner image are 800 in width and 455 in height. And then for the profile image, it's 200 by 200, just in case anybody missed that, sorry. Cool. So sorry, going back to creating a new episode. The first thing to do is to select the date on which your show is going to air. So I'm going to say, pick today's date. Let's just say, for instance, we're doing a show right now. I'm going to say that it starts at 7 p.m. So it's in 24-hour time. And it's going to go for an hour. So once I've selected all of those criteria, you can then hit create. And that will then have created an episode for you. Just to note as well, if you accidentally put in the incorrect date or incorrect time that your show starts, you can actually edit it by clicking on this blue pencil just here and selecting the appropriate date, time, and duration, and then hitting modify. You can also delete the episode if you need to do that too. So it's all easy to change. All right. Next thing to do now that you've actually set up your episode is to start adding some tracks to it. So whether that is a song or a segment, you can start doing that straight away. I'm going to go with a song just to give you an example of exactly how to do it. So what I'm going to do is start from the left and kind of work my way across. So we've got an A button, which is essentially how you identify if it's an Australian artist or song. And we've got a local button, which is to identify, as it kind of suggests, if that artist is from your particular area. We also have a time code section here, which if you do want to put in the time that you've aired, then by all means do it, because it's a really great way to kind of indicate exactly when things have aired in your show. For this instance, though, I'm not going to do that just yet, but I'm going to pop in now the artist name in this particular box. We'd already remembered, it's Dan Sultan. I'm going to pop in the song name, which is one of his latest singles from his upcoming album. And then you can either hit enter on your keyboard or press this little blue plus sign just here, and that's going to add that track to your playlist. So yeah, if your station has radio on demand, a really good idea is to pop in the time code, but by all means, if you don't, then that's totally fine. All right, I forgot to click the A. Cool. So that's done. Now you've added a track to your playlist. It's now time to kind of look at the content that it's drawn up from this particular track, and then we can kind of work and put in the content that we want to display. So you can see here that it's pulled up the album artwork for this particular single. But if you don't want it to do that, you can click through the options that it pulls up. So it might pull up, images of Dan Sultan, images from his video, anything like that. So you can decide exactly just what you want to display by clicking on these arrows. Another good thing as well is that if you want to display a specific image and you have the web link to it, you can actually click on this little button here, and it'll come up with a box that allows you to actually copy and paste an image in there. So for instance, if I wanted to take a specific image from, say, Google Images, and actually display that in there instead, I can look at these particular ones here. This one's actually taken from Noosa Community Radio, interestingly enough. Right click on that image, hit copy image address, and go back to my Amrap page, paste that into that box, hit the tick. That will then display that image. If you then refresh the page, it will basically sit the image correctly, so it's not all kind of distorted and not looking like it should, basically. You've also got an option here to add in the album and release name as well. So I might want to pop in the name of the album that this song particularly comes from. You don't have to, but it's something that you have the choice to do. It also pulls up a really cool Wikipedia entry description. If that particular artist has a Wikipedia page set up for them, it'll draw that information as well. But you don't actually have to have that if you don't want to. You can actually hide this particular entry and edit the track notes to say something that you might want it to say. So whether or not, if, for instance, in this case, let's say the latest single by Dan Sultan is our brand new track of the week. So these are all things that you have the option to do. By all means, we're not saying that you should definitely do this, but these are kind of ways that you can kind of make this page your own, essentially. All right. As I mentioned as well, the video down here is something that you probably should check and pay most attention to. There is a possibility that the video that it pulls up might not be appropriate for that particular track. Also, to note as well, when you have put a segment in, if you've done an interview with someone, the video that it pulls up and the image that it pulls up may not be relevant. So it's a really good point to check everything that is pulled up when you put a track or a segment into your playlist so that you can kind of edit things accordingly. All right. So now I'm going to go and add a segment to our playlist because I think that's looking pretty good. This is basically everything that everyone who visits my page now is going to see in a public setting. But now I'm going to pop in a segment just to show you the differences. So as I mentioned a bit earlier, your segments could be a gig guide, it could be an interview with maybe a local politician, a member of your community, a musician, or it could be a news segment, it could be a debate. There's so many different things that kind of come under the umbrella of segment, and they're all good things that are, to put into your playlist so that people can see exactly what you've done. So for this example, I'm going to use an interview with a local musician. And what I generally suggest and what we suggest to do here at Amrap is to first off identify what the segment is. In this case, I'm going to put interview just so that people are very aware of what it is. This particular interview that I'm going to refer to was an interview that I did with a musician from Sydney, and he was talking about Sydney's live music scene. So as I've just said, I'm basically going to identify exactly what this particular segment was about. So Sydney's live music scene, and this guy's name was Daniel Antics. So that is going to be put into the artist name box, just so that people, that's the first thing that people see, and people are aware that that is what the segment is about. You can then use the track box name to basically give a bit of an idea of what was spoken about in this segment. So in this case, we spoke a little bit about the lockout laws and I guess how they've affected Sydney and Sydney's live music scene. So in this case, I am going to type that very sentiment in just to give people an idea of what it is that they can expect if they listen back to this particular segment. All right. As I mentioned, if your station has radio on demand, a really good idea would be to put the airtime in so people can skip forward to that moment in time and listen back to the interview if that's what they're there for and that's what interests them. But for this example, I'm going to show you how to embed a SoundCloud file that I created and uploaded to SoundCloud into this particular track, into the track notes, so that people can actually go to that specific track on the playlist and actually listen back to the interview. So I'm going to add this track to my playlist. Going to make sure that it's ticked as Australian because it's Australian content. And I am now going to basically proceed to hide everything that is drawn up. So you can see here that no video was made available. This image is definitely not relevant, and it has decidedly come up with a description of Russell Crowe, which is really interesting. Didn't expect that. So I'm going to hide all of this and basically leave it as a bit of a blank canvas at this point. The next step that I'm going to do is to go to the SoundCloud file that I want to embed, which just so happens to be this one. And the way that you can do this is on SoundCloud specifically, you find where it says share just here, and it will give you a share, embed, or message option. I'm going to click embed. And then I'm going to select so these are kind of the views that you can use to embed. So if you embed it with this code, it's going to look like this. If you click here and use this code, it's going to look like this. And this is what I want because it's going to look a little bit better in my playlist. All right, so I've copied and pasted that code now. I'm going to go back to my Amrap page, click on track notes. Now this is really important. I'm going to click on source. And then I'm going to paste in that code that I just copied. And I'm going to then click the tick to save what I've just done. And just like magic, it will then bring up and embed that particular file into this track on the playlist. And you'll basically be able to click the play button and it will play it directly. All right. So that's basically a very quick tutorial on how to add a track and a segment to your playlist. You can actually edit your playlist at any time simply by hovering over and then the artist name or the track name in both instances, double clicking, and then you can make edits as you want. So if it's not Dan Sultan, if it's somebody else, you can type in the correct name, hit enter on your keyboard, and that will then update it for you. Same goes with this one as well. You can also pop in the air times later on as well if that's what you, if you're maybe filling in your playlist just before your show goes to air and you want to pop in the air times, you can do that by clicking on this space here before the artist name and popping in the time. So I might pop in, 07:05, and that will then appear. All right. You can also, as you can kind of see from what I've been doing, you can mark tracks as Australian or as local after you've popped them onto your playlist. That might be a bit easier for you if you want to do that as well. You can also move the tracks up and down to reorder them. So if maybe this segment aired before that track, you can click on this little icon here, hold down your the button on your mouse, and just basically move your mouse so that you can basically place that track wherever you want it to be placed. And of course, you can delete the tracks if they're not appropriate or if they're incorrect as well. That featured content button that I mentioned a little bit earlier is also visible just here. So if, for instance, my whole station was using Amrap Pages, I might actually want to notify the digital content producers at my station that I've done this interview and I think it's really great. I think it's worth pushing out. If you want to, maybe take a listen. I'll tick that, the feature content button. That will then basically generate a report that they can run, and they'll see that I've done this particular segment. Then they might choose to share it out by social media or create a web post about it as well if they see fit. So it's a really good workflow for your station. All right. Once you've actually popped your songs or segments into your playlist, you might actually then decide to edit your episode title, image, and description to give people an idea of what you spoke about. So as you can see, the episode title here, I might pop in new Dan Sultan plus how the lockout laws have changed Sydney's live music scene, just to give a very brief overview. So you can hit enter or click the tick, and that will save that change for you. Again, you can also pop in an image if you want to. Same method as before with the banner image and the profile image. You click on this little button here, and I might just pop this nice image in of Sydney's Harbour and Opera House, and that will then display that there. And again, an episode description will bring up exactly the same box where you can type in a brief summary of what you did on the show, save, and then save that particular, save what you've done, in this particular box. Cool. All right. As I mentioned, these things are entirely optional, but they're a really great way to, draw people in to your show. All right, so now we've gone through the very basic, how to use your Amrap page. I'm just going to go through now the options that you've got just here to kind of control the different facets of your page. So I can see there, Cynthia, that you said content on public display button. We've actually got a button here that allows you to hide each episode if you want to. So if, say, for instance, you want to build a particular episode before it goes to air, you can actually untick this little box here, and that will hide this episode from the public. And the way that you can then make it public once you've finished building this episode is just to retick it again. So that's a really good way. That's a really good way to kind of build things prior and then kind of unveil them once your show has gone to air. While you're building your episode as well, you actually have the option to preview what it will look like to the public. And that is simply by clicking this little button here that says preview. This is exactly how your page is going to look when people come across it online. They can click on the different tracks and they can see all of this content that you've kind of created and popped into your page. All right, and simply then to get back into the edit mode, you can then click exit preview, and that will take you back to edit mode to allow you to make any more changes that you want to make. I'm going to quickly go now to these guys here. So these are all ways that you can kind of use your page to help with the preparation of your show and also the way that you want things to be displayed. Options is basically how you can control what you would like people to see. So you have the option of making new episodes publicly viewable by default. So that means every time you create an episode, it's already going to be visible to the public. If you don't want that to happen, you can untick that, and when you create an episode, it'll be private until you make it public. So you can think of it like publishing like a post online, for instance. You can also turn off these things here, which are, it'll automatically search for images, search for videos, search for Wikipedia. If you don't want the tracks to do that when you put them into the playlist, you can simply untick all of these, and it won't do that. You can then build it from scratch if you want to do that as well. I'm going to keep these ticked though. You can also add in the add album release track input row. This basically means that you can, when you're popping in a track to your playlist, if it's a song and you particularly want to pop in the album or release name for that particular track, you can make it so that when you're putting in the when you are putting in the artist name and the track name, you can then tab across and pop all of that information in there instead of having to go back later on, click the pencil and put it in there. So that's just a way to make your workflow a bit easier for you if that's something that you're going to use. All right. Next up, next to that option, we've got the export option, which is basically allows you to export all of the information, all of the playlists that you've created in Amrap Pages into a CSV file that can actually be opened with Microsoft Excel. So if you want to keep a record on your own computer, for instance, you can do that by downloading this spreadsheet. You can download all episodes, or you can download specific episodes from a certain date point. Whatever you decide, you're actually able to do that. Next up, we're going to go to account. So these are kind of things that might help you with access to your page. So you've got the option to change your password if that's what you want to do. If you've changed your email recently, you can change it here as well. If, for instance, you have maybe, this might apply particularly to Talkspace programs, but if you have a number of different people who help you with your show, whether it be presenting or producing, you can actually click on Add Broadcaster. You can add their email address, and they'll actually have access to your page and be able to pop in information to your playlists and update your information accordingly if you want them to do so. So that's a good way to share the load as well if you have a number of different people involved in your program. And the way to kind of manage who has access to your program page is to click Show or Delete Broadcasters. This basically will then list a whole bunch of email addresses of those who can access your page, and you'll be able to delete them if that is not correct or if they've moved on, so you have control of your page. All right. Next up, this is where the connecting to Facebook can kind of come into it. You're able to do it directly from your Amrap page. So as you can see here, it is possible to display it in your Facebook page as a playlist tab. So if you already have a public Facebook page, so that is like this one just here that I mentioned and I've shown you a bit earlier. This is a public Facebook page that everybody can like if they want to, and your posts are basically open to the public. If you want to display it in there, all you need to do is click there. This will then allow you to select the name of the page that you want to embed your Amrap page into by clicking that there, and then you add Page tab. Once you've done that, it will then ask you to select your station and select your program, which I believe it was that one. And it'll ask you to put in your email address again, just to verify that that is what you want. I think I've just typed in my password wrong. Oh, joy. Good times. All right, let's try that one more time. Cool. All right. So now it will basically allow you to display your Amrap page into your Facebook page like so. So it's available as a tab on the left here, and people can click on it and see exactly what you've done each week. So you can choose to edit your Amrap page through Facebook or through this particular, the home of your page here, if you want to do it that way as well. And just quickly as well, just to show you, you can actually connect it to Twitter through your Amrap page. So again, connection to Twitter is the option. You click here, you follow the prompts. And it will basically come up with a little frame here that allows you to compose tweets and tweet directly from this particular page. So as I mentioned, trying to make it really easy for you guys to kind of share your content out to your followers on social media if you already have them and you already have a public page set up as well. All right, so once you're done with your page as well, you can log out. If you ever need any help, then there is a help button, and you click by clicking the wizard as well, it will take you directly back to that guide that I mentioned a bit earlier on. So if you need any specific pointers, you can go here and search for it. But logging out once you're done is what you need to do, and then you can kind of go forth and share out your content to social media. And a great way to do that is to kind of so you can share out the episode specifically. You've got buttons here for share episode and share track. Basically, you can either do share directly to Facebook or share directly to Twitter, or the way that I think is really quite cool to do actually, because it basically allows you to kind of curate and really control the content. and how it looks on social media is to basically click the link there, right-click on that URL and hit copy, head to your Facebook page, and then you can create a post that is significant to basically give people an idea of what they can expect. So with this particular one, this particular page, it's a demo page, so it's not going to come up exactly the way that it should, but with your pages, it'll probably come up a lot prettier than that. And you can actually just, you can edit this particular bit here so that it basically gives a bit more of an idea of what you are, what you're basically talking about. So, you know, this might be the name of your program page, for instance. And then you might pop in a little description about what you did on that particular episode. So interview on Sydney's lockout laws, and plus, oh, cool. So you can also add in an image as well, which by clicking that little plus sign, it will then bring up a specific page. It'll bring up a specific image, and then you can actually publish that onto your Facebook page if that's what you want to do, and it'll look quite nice like that, and it'll take people directly to your page. Okay, I think, you know, it's good to point out that you don't have to do this specifically for each segment. It's really just for the ones that you think are really cool and that you want to push out to your followers and your fans online for people to listen to later on, and also to tag people in as well who may be, you know, interested in that content. So with that in mind, I think we've kind of reached the end now of this particular webinar. If you have any questions, as I mentioned, feel free to get in touch on pages@amrap.org.au. I'm happy to help you guys out, particularly if you have issues accessing your Amrap page. I can definitely help you out there as well. And if ever you have any particular issues or you're struggling with using your page, just remember that you can always click on the little help button just here, and it will bring up a step-by-step guide that will basically give you all of the knowledge that you ever need about your Amrap page and what you can use it for. So, yeah, thank you very much for stopping by and for taking part in this webinar. I'm sorry that I've kind of talked at you for the whole night, but I'm hoping that you all got something out of it, and I look forward to seeing all of your content on your Amrap pages. And Maddie as well will also be, yeah, Maddie's in the chat box, and she's also our RWS coordinator too. So if you ever need any help, if you have an RWS website that we've created for you, she is the best person to go to for that as well. All right, thanks so much, guys. Have a great night.